Hello, everyone. My name is Aston Chipanshi from the Science and Technology branch of Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada. On behalf of my co-presenters, Catherine Champagne and Lisu Zhang, I'm happy to present the 2021 Canadian Prairies growing season conditions, and this will be a general review. The biggest story from a climatic perspective in 2021 growing season was the drought, which covered something like 94% of the agricultural land in Western Canada. The drought also was special in the sense that it was quite rare, and the majority of the prairie agricultural divisions fell into the descriptions that we call extreme or exceptional drought. And these are quite rare events in the sense that they are 1 in 20 years and 1 in 50 years, respectively. The drought of 2021 actually covered multiple years. What we saw in 2021 was really a progression of the dryness that started 4 years prior. And as you can see from the slide, in the bottom portion of the slide, we notice that the 48-month standardized precipitation index shows that the drought actually had been going on since 2020. Just to try to put the 2021 drought into perspective, there have been a number of droughts in the past. For example, some of the well-known droughts include 1961 and 1988. And comparing that to 2021, 2021 was quite exceptional in the sense that it covered a very large area of the prairie landscape, as well as intensity. It was quite intense, as I've just explained in the previous slide. In terms of impacts, I have this slide showing the drought of 2021 in terms of how it affected canola yield projections. And this projection was made in September of 2021. You notice in the slide and the graph that we have also production of canola in 1988 and 2002. And on a comparative basis, you notice that really 2021 in terms of impacts was not as bad as 1988 or 2002. And that's simply because of the technology advancements and as well as management improvements that have been made over the years. But in general, as you can see from the graph, we notice that really, even though the impacts were not the worst, it was still below the 5-year average. Looking at prairie-wide production in terms of impacts, and this is looking at canola. This map shows a projection of canola yield by September 2021. And the legend shows that the majority of the agricultural divisions across the prairies were projected to be in the poor or below average categories. Overall, for canola, and this metric of the impacts of canola yield reductions was not only specific to canola, but other crops as well. And if you want to look at other crops, you can check the URL at the bottom of the slide, left side of the slide. And these projections are made starting in July up to the end of the growing season. The drought conditions that I've just talked about were intensified by a number of factors. Chiefly, the reason why why the drought was so extensive and intense was because we had very high temperatures, and the map on the top left shows the number of days that had temperatures above 30 degrees. And overall, during the growing season, there were about 25 to 27 days, which had days with 30 degrees, above 30 degrees centigrade. This is close to about 1 month out of the entire growing season. So we get growing season on the Canadian prairies is something like 4 months. And out of the 4 months, we lost 1 month because the temperatures were just too high. And looking at the bottom right side of the graph of the slide, you notice the heat dome that we experienced in July. And this is showing that the majority of the agricultural divisions had temperatures ranging from 30 to 40 degrees in early July. We can also look at precipitation, and looking at the accumulation of precipitation throughout the growing season. This was below normal throughout most of the summer and across most of the agricultural divisions. And you notice that the bottom slide shows the hectares, the area that were in the that had something like 60 to 150 millimeters below. So it was quite extensive in terms of areas impacted. Just closing in a little bit, zeroing in on one or two agricultural divisions, and this is taken from Saskatchewan. You notice on the graph on the right that the accumulation of precipitation actually, or the deviation, started around about mid-July. And we noticed that as we progressed in the season, the difference between what was accumulated in 2021, shown by the green line, from the average, the 5-year average, actually continued to grow as the season progressed. Next, we can talk about surface soil moisture. And this slide is showing surface soil moisture from June to August. And you notice that we had very, very negative anomalies in June and July, but that improved in August when we received some precipitation that was rather too late. And so for the most part, there was very little moisture accumulation throughout the growing season. We can also talk about the stress. And the crop stress here is referring to the ratio of actual evapotranspiration to potential evapotranspiration normalized by subtracting that ratio from 1. And again, looking at the number of crop divisions that were in the severe or extreme categories of stress, we see that that was quite extensive. And of course, crop stress has a lot of implications on potential yield, as I've already explained. We can also map the vegetation status, and this is mapped using the normalized difference vegetation index. And again, this index is used to assess biomass potential as well as productivity potential. And mapping this index by end of August, we noticed that again we find that it was very low to low, which gives us an indication that the expected yield would actually be very low. The other important variable that we normally talk about in assessing agroclimatic conditions is related to temperature. And in this slide, we are showing the growing degree days throughout the growing season, again comparing what we received in 2021 with what was comparing that to what we would expect on average, and just looking at the 5-year average. The growing season at the beginning, the accumulation of growing degree days was more or less on average, but as June set in, because of the high temperatures that I've talked about, and then the growing degree days were above average. However, this was not very big difference. It was, as you can see from the legend, this was just something like 2 to 8%, depending on location. In summary, the key agroclimatic variables were trending below or above as early as June. And there was low precipitation combined with high temperatures, and this resulted in high crop stress, which reduced vegetation biomass. And historically, the 2021 drought was the most widespread and very severe, compared to what we have had in the past 50 years. Of course, the impacts were, as I've explained, were a little bit less compared to other drought years. And this was mostly because of the advancements that have been made through adaptation and using technology and management options. The initial canola yield reductions for 2021, as projected in September, are in the order of 30 to 40%. And of course, these will be adjusted as we receive final numbers in December or early January. If you have questions and you want, I guess, or just to make comments, please contact the emails that are shown in this final slide, and we will be available during the Q&A if you have any questions that you want us to answer. Thank you very much for your attention.
Perfect.